You cut 2 holes. I learned the hard way years ago being lost in the mountains with a GPS that I had just turned on for the first time in my life, that sometimes you gotta trust electronics. Sometimes, maybe not tonight. But I trusted the GPS, and we cut a 9 by 4 foot hole, and we got smoke, had a little bit of fire, not much. Punched through, went down the other side. We cut a different hole. I had a rookie on there, so I wanted to show him how we could cut a hole like we're working off a roof ladder. We louvered it, big hole. Then we went inside to do search, and my main concern was, did I mess up? Because I never cut a hole for Mike Gibson and his guys making an attack on the center apartment. What we did, we cut a hole. The only 2 places that fire made it into that entire attic was exactly where we cut our holes. And I can tell you this, without a tick, I would have never in my life cut a holes on the ends. I would have cut a hole directly above where the crew was making their attack. Now, I'd have done that, I'd have punched through, and I might have gave them some relief. I don't know if y'all know Mike Gibson, he doesn't need relief. But what we did is we isolated the fire. So it worked awesome in that case, but you have to have, that fire has got to have made its way up to the attic so you get a heat signature for the tick to work. But I always have it, as opposed to the old days where I always left them on the ground. Now I always have it attached. So absolutely, if you can see, use the tick. But what I'm looking for, first, let me go back to size up, visually sizing the roof up. When we pull up, first thing I'm looking for to know if I'm even gonna go to the roof, depending on if a guy in a white shirt tells me. I always like it when a chief tells me come in for ventilation, lets me make the decision whether I'm gonna use a fan or I'm gonna go to the roof. But if I pull up and I've got smoke pumping out of the soffits, that is a sign the fire is in the attic. It's either gone to the attic or it is an attic fire. You know what they say, if you pull up and you got heavy smoke pulling out of the soffits, you got 3 little kids looking through the Venetian blinds, you have an attic fire. Y'all get that? Fire over their head? Y'all never done that? Man, okay, so much for the comedy. But there's a lot of truth to it. You can have an attic fire, and I mean, probably anybody been around long enough knows the stories where the neighbors have to run and evacuate the people out of the house. But the only way smoke gets to soffits, guys, the only way is via the attic. So when you pull up, that's what I look for. If I've got smoke pumping out, pushing, or even, it doesn't have to be pushing. I've got a video somewhere in here of light smoke out of soffits and another video of heavy smoke out of soffits. Y'all may not see it, but it's on there. But that's what tells me I'm going to the attic. Now, if I don't already have fire in the attic, then I have to decide, by doing my 360, is this a fire that I can vent close to the fire and use a fan? Is it a fire I don't know where the fire is at? In that case, I'm going back to the roof and cutting a hole because I know which way fire, smoke, and heat want to go. They want to go up. So there's different things you look for, but you have to, one of the things then you have to look for is the condition of the roof. And I'm going to let you start moving because I've got a real good one somewhere. Oh, there. How do y'all like my technical tool? A ruler. 1/4 inch decking. That was for emphasis. I read that in a book on teaching a class. Emphasis. Okay, next picture. Oh, no. Hey, no, you were good. Oh, there's a close-up. How would you like to stand on that? Hey, this is 16's crew. Can y'all see the smoke coming out of the soffits? You see the smoke coming out of the soffits? Now look over here to the left. You see the smoke coming out of the first floor window? Where do you think the fire started? Hey, if I could tell y'all one thing, besides sounding roofs, one thing, no, actually 2 things that if in your whole career you ought to study and learn. One of them is building construction, the other is reading smoke. Man, that smoke tells you so much about where the fire's at and where it's going. Remember this. I know I've got a rookie here. I always like to hone in on rookies. Remember this. Wherever the smoke goes, the fire will follow. Mark my word. If you make a 600-foot warehouse and you got smoke, you got fire on this end, and you got smoke coming down the other end, If you don't put the wet stuff on the red stuff, the fire is going to come to where the smoke's at. And the other thing about the fire, doesn't hardly ever burn fast against the smoke. You don't see smoke going this way and fire hauling butt that way. Okay? Here again, look at how the smoke's pushing out under the soffit. That fire is in the attic. And what you want to do when you cut your hole, and I'm getting off of rooftop safety, although really I'm not, because the quicker you cut an effective hole, the quicker you get off the roof, the safer it is. You're going to keep me on task for my...
I'm doing my best, Kevin.
Good luck. I'll hang over. Okay, you see how it's pushing out under pressure. Okay, go to the next slide. Go to the next one. Again, there you go. Here we go. I like this one I found. Whoever leads their guys on the roof needs to be a leader. There shouldn't be anybody pushing guys from behind. Anybody going to a roof needs to be a leader. I don't care if it's the firefighter or if it's the captain. Whoever's got the most experience, they need to be assertive and they need to be the leader. They're the ones reading that roof and they're leading guys that are trusting them to make right decisions. Y'all ever see this before about a leader and a boss? We got a lot of them in the fire department. There are a lot of bosses. I think I'm one. I'm trying to be a leader. Okay. You see, let me see here. There's going to be another one. This is an apartment fire I just made. You see the AC unit just to the right of the gable end? This is 3/8 plywood on 2-foot centers. See if you click another one, surely it'll be a closer. Okay, how about one more? Okay, look here. You see the dips in between? You see where you can see where every rafter is in it? That's a sign, don't get on that roof. Not right there. Doesn't mean you can't get on that roof somewhere else. Can you go back one? How about one more? Okay, look where the gable is. The bulk of our fire is to the right of the gable. Doesn't mean that if we go to the left of the gable and sound the roof and it's solid and we're able to get a hole established over there, that's not a bad thing. When we make that hole, we're going to take the fire smoke and heat up and over. Okay, let's go back the other direction, the one where we're getting toward the finish line. Does everybody see the dips? I mean, that's pretty obvious. Don't go, if you go up there, I promise you when you start sounding, you're not going to keep walking. But you don't even waste your time going when you can see every one of those rafters. Okay, next one. That's what we were dealing with. You see the 3/8 plywood burn up. You're literally looking at tar paper and you're looking at shingles. If you step there, it's a direct trip right now. Okay, next one. Okay, deal with old roofs. Now, if this house was under heavy fire, what are the chances you're going to see? People will say, people have just recently said, well, why'd you go on that roof? There was a blue tarp. Why'd you go on that roof? There was this, there was that. Click, I'm going to find one. Y'all remember what this looks like. This is a bad roof, but there's no fire. Keep going. Oh, here's one where there was fire. You see the roof? You see the roof? There is no roof. Every bit of it burned away. So what if somebody had gone up on it thinking they were going to cut a hole? Click another one. Here we go. Would you go on that roof? Would you go on that roof and not sound it? We don't know what we're getting into at any time. Now that roof, hey, it may very well be that roof is solid. But how would you know? How would you know? What's your risk versus reward? I mean, click again. Another picture saying fire. It tells you the old fire you saw hit boots. We used to say when fires were hotter and water was wetter, boy, were we wrong. Man. I think, can you, now this is the one, what's the next picture? Nope, go back the other direction. There should have been two. Oh, there we go. You see the smoke coming out of the soffits down here, guys? You see that? This hole's just being opened up. That's a sign the hole hasn't had time to relieve the pressure. But here's what you look for. You see how that smoke is rolling? It's low, it's rolling, it's not coming real high under pressure. That's because the hole is so big, there's no pressure. It's relieving the pressure. It's like taking your thumb, putting it on a garden hose, and then pulling it all the way off. You know, when we first start cutting a hole, or you cut a small hole, which guys, 4x4s or small holes? 4x4s were the holes I was told to cut 38 years ago when I was in the academy, when fires were not nearly like they are today. That's strange because everybody agrees the fires burn faster, put out tremendous amount of more smoke, but yet the State Fire Commission, the correct answer on a rookie's test was 4x4. And you know the strange thing about that? It's verbatim the same way it was when I came through, and it says the minimum size hole you should cut on a residential fire. What that means is the smallest, but it has become the rallying cry for the majority of firefighters across the nation. When you ask them, what size hole do you cut? They say 4x4. It's like, that's the go-to hole. But here's the drawback about, how much time have I got? Oh, I got a clock right there.
Yeah, you got a clock. You got all the time in the world.
All right.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to stray here a little bit and talk about ventilation. Here's the drawback of cutting marginal holes. And here's the reason that 4x4 holes or marginal holes are deemed effective. Imagine, and I'm sure everybody's been here pretty much, maybe a rookie hadn't. Imagine that supercharged house fire that smoked to the floor, and you get there and you start to go in, and you can't go because the heat's too intense, the smoke's all the way to the floor, and your officer says, hold up, wait till the truck crew cuts a hole, and they cut that hole and that smoke comes up about 3 foot. Rookie, remember that 3 foot thing, okay? Comes up about 3 foot. That's when your officer says, okay, Rook, let's go. That's you. On the nozzle, man. Go. And now you go down that hallway and you're going to go down there and make that turn, put the wet stuff on the red stuff. And when you do that, that smoke starts coming up and goes out. And even though it was a 4x4 hole, it was effective on that fire. It was. Anybody doubt it was? But let me change the scenario one little bitty iota. Same fire, same hole. But when you go down that hallway trying to get to that fire, something stops you. A couch, a bookcase. You know where the fire was at, but you can't get there. You can't put the wet stuff on the red stuff. And if fires burned exponentially fast in the old days, it's off the chart today, folks. And here's what's going to happen. Mark my word. Chief, correct me if I'm wrong. I know you've been there. You're going in under this smoke 3 foot off the ground, and you get in here deep, but you can't find the fire. And suddenly, like that smoke comes to the floor, super black, super hot. Never ever in my career have I seen cool black smoke. And if you try to count to 10, you won't make it. It's fixing to change colors. You know what color it's going to be? Yep. Here's what happened. What did we just crawl underneath? What is smoke? Fuel. Gasoline. Nobody in their right mind would have a gasoline spill and be able to see the vapors right here, even though I know gas is everywhere in there. I know. You thought you would get me on that one, didn't you? He's fixing to call me on the carpet. But imagine that gas wasn't, and it was lighter, and you could see the fumes right here. Anybody in their right mind crawl underneath gasoline fumes back and know there's an ignition source somewhere in the area? No, but we do it all the time. But here's what happens if you cut a big hole. If you cut a big hole and all the smoke quits pushing out of the soffits all the way around. Now you can always have smoke pushing out of soffits in an isolated area. You know what I'm talking about? It might have burned out of the window right here and set the soffit on fire. But you're not gonna, when you look around the perimeter of that house after you've opened that hole up, you're not gonna see this pushing smoke all the way around. The only way smoke does that is because of pressure being pushed down. Because the soffits are here, and the ridge where you cut your hole is up here. So you cut a big hole, and this is how it changes. you fix to get a Ballard Award. Truck crew cuts a big hole. You know the truck crews make pumper crews look awesome. You know that? I didn't say that when I was on a cap on a pumper, but I said it when I was a cap on a truck. You cut a big hole and this smoke leaves the building. Now you go down there, if you have trouble finding it, it's not a big deal. You can see. You see the couch open. You see the difference? There's no place in the fire service any longer for marginal holes. I tried to talk to people about it, but they look at you like you're crazy. Kind of like when you talk to them about flowing 300 gallons a minute out of an 1 3/4 hose. That'll be our next class. I almost put it on here. I wanted some reaction. Have I got enough time for hose? Okay, well, wait. He's going, what the heck did I get into? Any questions up to this point? I know we're having a question and answer.
Hey, Captain, so you keep saying big hole. What do you consider a big hole?
9 by 5. I shoot for a 9 by 5 every time I go to the roof. I've got some officers in a class this week, a ventilation class, and we're gonna be cutting 9.5 foot by 5 foot. I tell you, my down cuts, it depends on the saw. If you have a steel 461, most of us, a down cut's gonna be 5 foot. If you got a Husqvarna, the Ventmaster, or an Echo, it's gonna be more like 4. But if you go to the roof planning on a 8 by 4, that's what your plan is. You're gonna more often than not end up with a 7 by 3. You have to plan bigger. I developed a theory over my career about the size of your hole, and the size of your ventilation hole is directly proportional to how scared you are. It really is. I've even tried to purposefully, when I'm on a roof and I'm concerned about conditions, I've tried to push the envelope to prove my theory wrong, but it can't be done. When you're on that super steep roof, even though you may have a 9 by 5 in mind, you're happy when you get like a 3 by 6. When that roof is compromised because, and you're down on your knees opening up, you're happy with just good enough. Hey, roofs can be what's the term? It can be hairy to get on. I mean, you're the guys going above the fire. If you get in trouble inside, you can find a window, maybe you can jump out. You get in trouble on a roof, you fall in. I just had a firefighter at a station I worked at the other day ask me that very thing. He said, what do you do? What do you do when you fall in and you can't get out? What do you do? We talk about throwing a roof ladder down in the hole. We talk about making a trench cut all the way down to the eave. We talk about hopefully they can get their hands. You take your New York hook and pull them out. I can tell you all that stuff that we drilled on is exceptionally difficult when you're drilling on it in no heat, no smoke. So he wanted to know, what do you do when none of those things work? I can't give you an answer. I cut a lot of holes as a truck chauffeur on Ladder 7 in the old days, and I used to sit there and think, what's your last move gonna be when you go in? It's 12 foot from where you fell into the shiplap decking. You can't fall through. It's not something you want to dwell on. So what you want to dwell on is making sure it doesn't happen. Making sure you good sound the roof. If you don't get anything else out of this class, it's sound the roof. Hey, one place that we've come extremely close to getting firefighters hurt or killed is stepping off a ladder. We had 5 firefighters in 1 year in 2 districts I run with on one shift hit the ground. One of them was the same firefighter on 2 fires in a row. And I'm going to tell y'all exactly what happened. In the old days, we only took 2 firefighters to a roof. 2 firefighters always went to the roof and 2 went in for search. Then the 2 off the roof come in full ceiling. Now we do 3. When it was only 2, if it was you and me going up and you went up first, I would foot the ladder. And then when you got to the roof, you would always turn around and hold the ladder till I got up. You had a vested interest in me being there because if I didn't make it, you had to do all the work. I can see you like to work, so I had a vested interest, making sure the other guy got up. But what has happened is two go up, and then they take off. The captain and the clean out man, they take off and leave the guy with the saw coming up the roof, the ladder by himself. And here is what happens, and y'all think about this. Maybe some of y'all already have an answer. But when they step off of this ladder, here's what they're doing. Pardon me. Nobody's footing the ladder. Nobody's holding it. They step laterally onto the roof. It takes energy to move your body from this point to this point. That energy comes when you push off with your off leg, the one that's still on the ladder, that's not attached to anything. And here's the way every one of them did. They step laterally onto the roof. They push with this leg. The ladder goes that way, and gravity always wins. 5 times we dropped guys all the way on the ground. One of them off a 2-story, but he landed on a roof that was below him. Y'all realize how any one of those could have been the last fall of that firefighter's life? And I got to tell this story. I was teaching this class at my station 24s one morning, and I included the medic unit in the talk, because you never know. They made a run that night, the afternoon. They come back to the station and said, Captain, you got to see this. They showed me a picture of an extension ladder sideways against an apartment building. AC man, DOA, did the exact same thing, except he landed on his head and it killed him. So you have got to, here's what I do. And I'm going to tell you what I do. Again, it's my opinion. No way represents the opinion of anybody else you may ever run into. I've had guys tell me, no, Cap, it won't work. I've been doing it my whole freaking career, so I don't know. 38 years almost of doing it, and it worked for me. But I always go one rung higher. I go one rung higher than the edge of the roof, and then I let gravity, I step down on the roof, and then I let gravity pull me down. The other guys are telling me they make a conscious effort to hold that ladder as they step. I don't care what it is, but you've got to have a plan on how you transition from that ladder with your equipment, with your tools, and get on that roof in one piece, because if you hit the ground, that's not good either, is it? Now, somebody, something I see too, everybody's heard about the number of rungs you should leave above the roof line, somewhere between 3 and 6, 3 and 5. It's like that's become the absolute. So here's what's happening. We got guys using 16-foot roof ladders to ladder 1-story houses, and they put 3 to 5 rungs above the edge of the roof, and that puts the foot of the ladder out here. So I've got crews crawling almost on their belly up. Have y'all seen that? I do a lot of that straightening those ladders out because it drives me nuts. But then guys will tell me, well, Captain, they just told me this 2 days ago when I had a debit day. I talked about it, and they said, well, Captain, what if those guys don't see how high they ought to be climbing? They keep going, then that ladder will kick out. Y'all know what I'm talking about? The edge of the roof here, and you got 10 rungs above it. I don't know. If you ask me, if guys, come on, at some point we got to have common sense. You know you're going up 8 foot. I don't know what the answer is, but ladder safety is extremely important. Why don't we go to the next slide and see if we can, let's go somewhere else. What didn't I cover? Getting off ladders? Oh, where to put the ladders? That's a good question. One of my bullet points I was supposed to cover is where to put your ladder. There's not a clear-cut answer for that. It depends on the situation. I'll tell you my own personal preference. If I've got a big gable roof, say a long roof, got a house, now you got everybody's attention on flathead axes. Can we go back the other direction? Let's just stay right here, right for now. Let's say this house, this roof, that's a gable roof. Let's say that roof's 40 foot. And as I do my 360, I see an area that I think I know where the fire is burning, so I want to get pretty close to over that. I really, unless I know exactly where I want to cut my hole, I prefer to ladder farther away, feel my way up to the ridge, and then work my way down the ridge to find the area I want to cut. That's my own personal preference. What that does for me, and I forgot to talk about this, is that lets me get on that roof where it's good, where the fire isn't burning. And when I step off of this roof, and I sound that roof and I start to walk up that roof has a feel to it. Now, I'm not for one moment ever condoning that you sound a roof with your feet. But that's invariably one of your indicators. When you get on that roof, if it's 3/8 plywood on 2-foot centers, you're going to know it the minute you step on that deck. If it's solid and you start moving up feeling it, and suddenly as you're walking you start to feel it doesn't feel as solid, that should be a red flag. But it does not mean to use your feet. You should always walk light. Should never, hey guys, never ever transition from one peak to another. I'm going to find this because I want to talk about it. This is a flat roof. I'd love to be able to talk about it, but you're not going to follow too many flat roofs. Keep going. Oh, I want to talk about that too. Keep going. Oh, that was upside down. I'm going to find it. Nope. We don't know how the pictures, they were right when I left the house. Oh, hang on, right there. Can y'all see here, I've got a gable end here, and then I've got like a doghouse comes out on the right. Can y'all see that? What you would never want to do is get up here on this ridge and then go over and step off of this roof onto this one without thoroughly sounding it. Because here's what happens. Each one of those areas is a heat sink. The amount of heat that comes in this roof, hey, the Captain Dern fire is a prime example. He went up a roof where the fire wasn't. He walked up, sounded a roof where the fire wasn't, stepped over on a roof where the fire was, where he only sounded it one time. Prime example. You'd never want to, and they just had a firefighter in Chicago do this, but his guy's safety. But he came down like this ridge over here from the left, went over and without ever sounding, stepped right over on the gable to the right and went straight in. You don't ever want to do that because every one of those roofs is different. What you're feeling right here is not what you're going to feel when you're here. So, and the other thing, think about if you step down on a roof, that's a moving force. You don't want to do that. So, always sound thoroughly. You can go back. I know that I got somebody's attention with flathead axes. I'd love to be able to get to the gate thing. Hey, flathead axes. Anybody use them on a roof to cut a hole backwards? Only one? Let me tell a couple. All right, let me tell you guys something. If I could go back and redo my whole career, there's several things I would redo. But one of them is I would use a flathead axe backwards. I used to, if I had a rookie bring me a flathead axe as the tool of choice, I always sent every one of them packing back. In fact, the whole time I was a captain, every rookie I ever brought me a flathead axe, I told them the same thing. Take that high dollar door wedge, get out of my sight, bring me a real tool, something you can do some work with, like a pickhead axe. That's what I carried. And then I watched a training video on a computer about a flathead axe backwards, and I told my crew, I said, what a horrible idea. It's got to be a gimmick. Probably like, 3/8 OSB. So we had a mall over about 28, so we had permission to go in for 2 tours and tear up. And I took my guys up on a roof with 3/4-inch commercial grade plywood and said, watch what a horrible idea this is. You want to guess what was behind my air bottle on ladder 16 the other day when I was playing like a real firefighter? A flathead axe. Hey, I'd never go to a roof without one. Not now. I've never seen one, and believe me, they work on 3/4-inch plywood, they work on shiplap, they work on, OSB, you could cut it with a broom handle. But they work on everything. They work on sheet metal. They'll work great on sheet metal as long as you're going in the same direction those ribs are. When you start trying to go across those ribs, you better take that cutting blade because it's tough. But the reason there are 4 kind of flathead axes in the city of Houston. I unfortunately couldn't locate the other 2, but the one on the right, here's the key. If you believe in a flathead axe, and if you don't, you ought to try it. Once you try it, you will not go back. Some of these guys use a pig. It's under the same principle, but the pig is way too much tool for me. I can't do it. But what you want is the back of that axe. The flat part has got to be the widest part of the axe. If it's not the widest, it's going to stick. So we've got 4 kinds. We've got the one on the left. It's the widest part is the back. But here it's the one on the left. Hang on, you're making me do this. The one on the left is the good axe. That's what I got on my safety car. Like you think safety officers don't cut holes, right? You never know. In the name of safety, the safest thing you can do is ventilate.
That's right.
The axe on the right, it works, but it doesn't work great because you see what it is? The back of it is not the widest part. It's wider right past right at the handle. But then we have these real pretty axes. That's always should be a dead giveaway. It's not worth a crap. They have the corners machined off of them. So they're actually narrow and then they get wide. And so they stick every time. And then the only place, and I know it's not there anymore, Captain Kelly, but 55's truck used to have one, and 62's pumper had this axe that looked like a crossbreed between a maul and an axe. It was flat on the back, but then it got fat around the handle. That wouldn't work. So what you're looking for is that the widest part is the very back. And then here's what you do for you non-believers. Try it one time. You won't ever go back. Your only swings that are home run swings are initially to get your hole started. Do you use one?
I haven't been on a roof with one, Captain.
Oh man, I'm gonna get you there one day.
I've got a pig, but no.
Oh, that's right. You got
no,
a pig. I can't compete.
No one will take me up.
But for me, my first swings are home run swings. You know, the ones over your head to get the hole started. But once you get it started, then you do the thing I used to tell people never to do, and that's to choke up. And then every swing is right here, all controlled. And guess what happens? Every time you hit, it knocks out about a 3 or 4 inch chunk. And you just cut. If you can get close to the raptor, it's even better. And here's what it avoids. It avoids you throwing your axe into the attic. Anybody ever done that? I've not only thrown mine, I took my crew's axe and then threw theirs too. And that happens when you do that home run swing, all for power, it was for show. I used to be concerned what people thought. When you get to all this, you're irrelevant anymore, so. But it was all for power, and then when you overshoot the hole, nobody can hold it. It always goes. Isn't it incredible we've never hit a fireman with it? Flathead axe backwards. Okay, I want to get to the gate, because these guys are going to talk about the gate video. They didn't come here thinking they were going to get gate. You're looking at your clock, aren't you?
Oh, sir, we have people having trouble finding it.
I'm sorry?
We have people having trouble finding the classroom.
Hey, there you go. But hey, can you turn that picture? Hey, there you go. Hey, somewhere in your career, if you hadn't already done it, you're going to make a chain link fence. Especially if you work in the wards, you're going to make chain link fences, and you're going to come up to them, and they're going to have a lot bigger chain around the latch than that. Can you go to the next one? Here's what. Okay, turn that one. There we go. Good deal. You see where the latch, here's where everybody hones in on. They hone in on the lock, on the latch, because this is where we always go through, right? So you'll see guys walk up there, they'll have their tools in their hand, have a halligan, have a flathead, have a pig head. They see a big lock, and they say, go back to the truck, get a pair of bolt cutters. Go back to the truck, get a K-12 saw, right? Hey, when seconds count, we got to be able to do it with what we have at hand. And here it's so easy. When I saw it for the first time, it's like, why didn't I think about it? You see the hinge, the bottom hinge is always fixed on these gates. It's the top hinge you want to hone in on. And that top hinge, now this one is actually backwards. This is someone didn't really know about security, because all you have to do in this case is pick the whole gate up off of that hinge. There's supposed to be one hinge that faces up on the bottom and one hinge at the top faces down. And this bracket over here slides up on that pin, and then they tighten it. Go to another, I didn't realize that till I just looked. But what you do, the hinge where they tighten it down, Go back the other direction, I'm sorry. You're gonna deserve a Valor Award after, okay, hey, go back, that's good enough, that's the best, that's my artistic ability. Can y'all tell what you're looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, another thing, if I could go back and redo my career, I'd take an art class. What you do is you take your tool and you just simply drive the top hinge down off the pin. And it's easy to do. On residential, it's real easy. Unless somebody got real smart and put a pin in it, which every now and then they will. Sometimes they'll weld them, but most won't. You'll knock that top hinge down and the whole gate comes off the bottom when you swing it out of the way. Hey, I've had captains chase me down on working fires and say, hey, I gotta know what you did. You gotta tell me after the fire how you got in the gate. Had a guy from the power company one day, my guys and me, he was trying to get in the back. I told one of my guys, open the gate, and he did that. The man said, you've got to show me the trick. But that's exactly what I said the night I jumped one of those gates, landed flat on my butt like I did every single one I ever jumped, and I watched a buddy of mine I'd worked with forever do that, and I said, you've got to teach me that trick. Super easy. Ian, forget the lock. Okay, let's see what else we got here.
Jenkins,
Hey,
you ever put the Halligan and take off the retaining bracket that holds the actual wire?
wait, say it again?
You know the little bracket holds the wire on there?
Yeah.
Now that section,
All those work, but will it work as fast? If you do this, there's other ways. Two, also your latch over here on the right, if I had a real picture of a real latch, a lot of those, if it doesn't have a chain, have you seen the one where they put the lock in the latch itself? A lot of those you can just take your Halligan or your tool and push through. They bend real easy, or they'll swivel on the gate. But here's the thing, it's just like a Halligan. A Halligan won't only do one thing. A Halligan will do a whole slew of things. A pickhead axle will do a slew. There's more ways to get in the gate. Just what you're talking about, pulling the piece, the wire.
when they bring the fence to the pole, they
Right.
put that bracket on there,
Right.
I just put the Halligan there, rip it off, and the fence turns into a shower.
Then for the whole fence. Okay, my way, see, you damaged it. My way, when you're done with the people's house that burn up, they'll be glad you didn't tear their gate up, because you can go right back to, hey, it works like on the EMS
Well,
goals.
fixing that fence is cheaper than that hole you cut.
But see, you see, there's all kind of different ways to do things. But see, what happens if you've only done it one way, if you saw it one way done, that say as a rookie, your captain said, go give me a K-12, go give me the jaws. If that's all you ever knew, every time you came to a little